Welcome to the Frictionless Innkeeper podcast series. Our show is brought to you by the Frictionless Guest App, which allows innkeepers to provide guests with their recommendations of the best local places to eat, play, and shop during their stay. The Frictionless Guest App is accessible through all mobile and desktop devices, and you can learn more about it by visiting frictionlessguest.com. Once again, that's frictionlessguest.com. I'm Matt Langen, and I'll be joined by Steve Short, the founder and CEO of the Frictionless Guest App. And our guest for this episode is Elaine Herbert, the owner and operator of the Yelton Manor in South Haven, Michigan. This is actually our second interview with Elaine, and today she's going to be telling us why millennials are the ideal guest for her property. And Elaine and Steve, how you both doing today?
Hi, guys.
How
I'm
are
doing
you?
great.
Hi, Elaine. Hey, Matt.
Welcome back, Elaine. Yeah, it's great to have you.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Sure. And let's start from a high level again, like we did last time. If you don't mind, remind our listeners about the Yelton Manor and your story.
Well, the Yelton Manor Bed and Breakfast is actually two big, gorgeous Victorian mansions. We're right across the street from beautiful Lake Michigan on the western shore of Michigan, kind of across the lake, across the big lake of Lake Michigan from Chicago. So we're about 2 hours out of Chicago, and we're a little lakefront resort of South Haven, Michigan, and we're a luxury inn, 17 rooms. We're a big inn. So this will be our 32nd year. We built the manor in 1988 and built the Manor Guest House in 1991. So we've been doing it a long time.
That's great. That's great. And to remind our listeners, for our last podcast, Elaine really provided some very candid insights on the impact of Airbnb on the tourism landscape in South Haven, Michigan. But today we're going to talk again, as we mentioned at the top, about millennials. And one of the things that was interesting to us is that Elaine has a unique, special perspective about millennials. And Elaine would love to hear more about this and your experiences overall in dealing with millennial guests.
Well, I don't know how unique my perspective is about millennials. I know that I like them. I like serving them. I think that the same reason that my husband and I came to be innkeepers when we left corporate life 30 plus years ago was that quality of life, quality of our own life was the deciding factor, the reason why we do it. And as a small business owner and entrepreneur, especially as an innkeeper, we're fully face-to-face. We're sharing life every day with our guests, 24/7. So my simple need, my requirement is that I have everyday joy in my everyday life. I have to be having fun. And my luxury is that I can tilt the table. I can have control over targeting the customer that I get based largely and quite purposefully on who I like to be with. Why shouldn't I? Who I want to serve. If I'm throwing this party, who do I want to party with is my attitude about it. And I've served hundreds of thousands of people in these 3 decades of innkeeping. And I certainly have a very solid notion about the kind of people I don't want to party with. I serve everybody. Our doors are open. And for me, who I don't want to party with is a pretty good place to start. I mean, I love children and dogs, but I knew from the beginning that I never would have lasted 30 years serving families and dogs. Other keepers do it happily. I mean, I don't market for weddings or group bookings. I accept them here and there when they fall into me, but I don't cherish doing it and I don't target it. I don't target like girl group scrapbook getaways or boisterous class reunions. I'm not a service martyr. My goal is to kind of minimize my business nightmares and maximize my everyday peace and enjoyment. So frankly, I target quiet, romantic couples between the ages of 25 and 40. I prefer a healthy, active, happy customer. Why wouldn't I? And millennials, this particular age group, they're also, I mean, let's face it, if you're going to go for purchase power, you're going to target your product or your service to the largest segment of the population, if you can, a growing market, a market with disposable income. And I have found millennials to be a value rather than just a price-oriented market. So I like them for that. But I just plain like them. I like youth. I like their style. I like their beauty and their passion and their problems and the challenges of their life. I like their humor. I like their graciousness. I mean, I'm stereotyping them, I know, but I just enjoy their company. I like being that place where they can rest during this. I mean, in terms of me being a ministry, I like that it's the busiest and most stressful period of their lives. Maybe it's motherly of me. I like that place. And they really like my place. They like my wonderful food, and God knows I love to cook. So as a stereotypic group, millennials are very generally trouble-free. Again, I've served hundreds of thousands of people, and this particular group is trouble-free if you compare them on a scale without saying terrible things about everybody else. This is a group that reads every policy. They're fully informed. They're very respectful of boundaries. They're very appreciative. They're not needy. For me, they're just a very ideal guest. And I guess that makes me a very picky, spoiled brat innkeeper because I like being with them. And I think that if you're going to do a job and you have the choice of how you're going to funnel your target and be happy for a long, long time, pick who you're going to work with. So that's why I like millennials over, say, baby boomers or any other kind of market.
That's great.
Let me give you an example. And again, I don't mean to disparage, but just to draw a comparison. And any innkeeper knows what I'm talking about. And I'm a baby boomer. So let me disparage my own friends and myself. Okay. I like people my own age. I don't dislike baby boomers. But, I can hear you out there going, well, what do you hate about baby boomers, Elaine? Well, as a generalized stereotype, they don't make a sensible number one target for me. For starters, they're not a growing market, obviously. We know why. We're dying off. But there's other things just in terms of service. My generation has physicality issues. I don't have an elevator in my inn. There's stairs to things. There's little step-ups that people trip on. People my age are traveling with breathing apparatuses and canes. And I don't know what it is about my generation, but they pack a lot of clothes. They always look like they've packed to go to Europe when they're coming for the weekend. They're not efficient packers. I know this sounds petty, but these little things add up to, boy, it sure is nice when you've got a couple of millennials who can pack their whole weekend into a backpack. And I know it sounds petty, but that's what they do. They're easy. Older people will have much more difficulty with the technology issues. They haven't read the policies. They think the policies don't pertain to them. It must not mean them, or it must not mean on this particular day. There are attitude factors. There are cheap kind of factors. They want everything they want AARP discounts. I don't know, every kind of discount imaginable because they get it where they go to get food or something. They can be kind of jaded. I'm a vegetarian and a lot of older people are solid meat eaters and carb eaters, and they don't match our food. They can be bossy, I hate to say it, and rude. There's something about my generation that wears a lot of perfume and a lot of makeup at the beach and jewelry. I mean, all of this kind of thing. This is a generation that can get hopelessly tricked by the online travel agents. They get confused by wondering why I'm not on Travelocity or whatever they're being sold on their televisions. They're just not as savvy. And they're certainly not finding me where I am marketing because I'm not marketing to them. But as a rule, I serve a lot of them because I've been here 30 years. So when I first opened, I still got the same people that I was serving when they were 40. They're now my age. And they're still coming because they still love us. But we're not really generating them as a new customer. We're bringing in millennials because we've been marketing for more than 10 years to this age group very successfully. So we love them.
That's great. Perfect segue for the next question. So if you don't mind, please share some of your insights about how you actually market and target millennials.
Well, some things are always the same. You make a plan, you work the plan. To target millennials, first, your product has to be what they want. And I think really as an innkeeper, you're just creating guest delight. So whatever millennials want, that's how your product has to be. And they're looking for a product, for starters, that's not old, that's not fogey-ish. This reminds me of an old story. This happened actually 30 years ago. So again, some of these rules never change. You just have to go back to the future. I remember 30 years ago, I had a friend who bought an inn, a small inn in the city of Constantine, Michigan. And the inn's name was called This Old House. And I had already been in business for a while, and she asked me for my advice. Of all the things, she said, Elaine, of all the things, what's the first piece of advice you would give me when I'm starting this? Is it my literature? What should I do to start this business? And I said, well, the first thing you have to do is change the name. You cannot be This Old House because everybody's got one of their own. Why do we want to come to yours? And she looked at me like I was crazy, and she was a little bit shocked and I think a little bit hurt. But she took my advice and she immediately changed the name of it to the Inn at Constantine. And it was extremely successful to her. And I think she would have failed horribly with this old house. Nobody wants to do that. So the first thing you have to be is not something that conjures up images of old spiderwebby, doily covered places with stuffed animals and grandma and grandpa in it, because they don't want it and they won't come to it. They don't want to come to a place that's kind of dumb. They don't want to come to a place that isn't tech savvy, because they are. And they won't feel safe or secure or comfortable in a place that isn't tech savvy. So they don't want to come to a truly old place unless they're seeking like maybe a farm or a truly rural escape. But they still want to be connected. They need it to be clean and modern, and it needs to be geared to them. It needs to have, for instance, board games and perhaps movies and the kinds of diversions that they enjoy. Flexibility has to be built in. It cannot be completely rigid. This old notion of only one kind of breakfast, chef's choice breakfast, one meal that is only at one time, that is served at one table with everybody else, that isn't going to fly. There has to be a lot of flexibility for those that don't want to get up at exactly that time and don't want to be forced to eat with a bunch of other people and may not want to eat that breakfast. That is not going to fly. Otherwise, you're excellent. Basically, a delightful, excellent inn is going to be just fine, as long as, and again, old-fashioned innkeeping, you can't hover, you can't be intrusive, you can't mother or father them. They're not your children. They're wonderful friends, and you can be nurturing, but you can't be smothering. They're there for a connection in a very precise kind of way. You have to be very professional about the way that you nurture them in a new innkeeping kind of way. I guess because most innkeepers, I dare say, are older and millennials are younger, the tendency, I dare say, of innkeepers is to nurture, is to feel motherly or fatherly about them. And I think that's inappropriate, personally. So the product has to be right. And then more importantly, you have to target them with the correct kind of marketing, and that cannot be old-fashioned kind of marketing. Advertising is completely inappropriate. It doesn't work. What people used to think of as outbound kind of marketing, ads. What works now is basically social proof, social marketing. This generation doesn't buy into traditional advertising. It means absolutely nothing to them. In fact, it's kind of instantly suspicious. It's kind of a turnoff. You can't just talk about yourself on your website. You have to create a body of information, a body of work on social media platforms that engage this young customer in your life and in your ministry at the inn. They have to actually be a part of it. You have to be authentically something that they feel a part of. That's why they're coming. Depending on what kind of inn you are, and I think it can be very generalized. You can be an urban inn or a rural inn or a farm inn or a resort inn. I think the first thing you have to do is listen to your millennial customer and find out why they're coming there. Really listen to them. They'll tell you. It's an old sales and marketing thing to just ask, why are you coming here? What made you make that decision to come here? And they will tell you. And then you just start doing that better. I've asked every young customer that's come here for the last 10 years, they'll say, oh, this is my first bed and breakfast. Oh, really? Well, why? And then they'll tell you. And they've told me so very much. The other thing is that this generation has built-in BS detectors. They can smell a rat a mile away. They know what's real and what's fake and what's authentic. And you just can't fake it with them. You can't. So if you don't totally like young people, these people, this generation, if you don't enjoy them and enjoy serving them, don't do it, because they won't like you either. So, and it won't work. It has to be a good match. You should always, I think every innkeeper should serve what's a good match for them. That's why there's inns that serve Christian groups and inns that serve farm groups and families and dogs. It just makes for a good match. But the first thing that you have to do with millennials is give them lots and lots of information. They really crave information. They're in the information age. They want to know a lot about you before they come, and they want to know it in lots of different ways, and they will actually read it all. I talk to a lot of innkeepers, and they'll say, well, They always complain that nobody reads anything that I give them. They never read my website. They never read it. They never read anything about me by the time they come. Who's at fault there? If they haven't read it, then it either wasn't interesting or wasn't provided in the form that they wanted to read it in. If you want them to read it, make it good, make it interesting, make it provocative, make it something they're going to want to read. So they need tons of information given to them in the forum that they're interested in. And when it comes to millennials, it needs to be in Instagram, it needs to be in Twitter, it needs to be in Facebook, it needs to be in your blog, it needs to be in other people's voices on TripAdvisor and to some extent Yelp, but mostly TripAdvisor. So in your online reputation and on your website, of course, but then linked to all those places. Easily linked, clean, and easily accessible and full and lots of information. And they will read it if it's provided beautifully with lots of visuals and not flashy and not flashing and made so that it's comfortable for them to read. So lots and lots of information because that's what they trust.
Elaine, I'm sorry, this is Steve. So
go ahead.
Try to share for other innkeepers. If I'm an innkeeper, I'm hearing all this, I'm like, okay, this is a lot of helpful information. So give me a little bit more in terms of if I'm wondering, well, do millennials really want to stay at B&Bs? Because you talk about a lot of your guests have been first-time B&B guests, the millennials that you've hosted. And
yes.
So what are some of those answers as to why they're coming now, why they gave it a shot? So in other words, talk about why other innkeepers should believe that millennials do want to come to a B&B and stay, and what do they need to do to kind of get the word out or to market to them so that they understand, the ones that haven't gotten it yet, if there's a potential that they will get it, how do you communicate that?
Okay. Well, from my understanding, and again, a lot of this is it is a combination of asking them and hearing what they say and then my own intuition. And I have a big base of information because I have a big inn. So I ask them. And some of them, they just get backed into it. They want to come to the beach. The hotels around me are kind of funky. They don't want to stay in it. And so they end up coming to my inn because it's located perfectly for them. And they say, wow, we ended up coming to a B&B. And then all I have to do is keep them by being fabulous. But when they truly made the decision to come to a bed and breakfast for the first time, the reason is because they want to be part of something that is, and I don't want to use the word intimate, but it truly is the same reason that people began going to B&Bs 30 years ago and 20 years and 10 years. It's the same reason everybody goes to a B&B or ever did go to a B&B instead of a hotel. It's because it's a nicer way to travel. And when they find that out, millennials have such a huge network and such an amazing way of getting that word out to all of their friends through social network, which they tell two friends and they tell two friends and they tell two friends, that word gets out like wildfire. They do the work for you if you work it right. If you harness that and if you manipulate, if you will, that experience. So what you harness is their desire to have an extraordinary lodging experience. Now, that's experiential travel. It's not going to a hotel where everything's gray and white and they check themselves in and they don't see anybody ever, or Airbnb where they don't have anybody ever. It's all just them. Instead, they're choosing something experiential. It's different. It's the same reason they go have a wedding at a barn, or they want to touch a little bit more. And the reason they want to touch a little bit more is usually the reason they're going to choose your product over, say, another inn or another lodging that's not, say, a hotel or something, is because you're offering something that touches them in a better way. And that is generally with millennials, is rather than selling your product, this is just in sales. This is just, don't just sell your features, sell your benefits. So you sell your purpose. Millennials love what we do here. They love that I changed out all of my fancy beautiful flower perennial borders that I was absolutely famous for 30 years now into drought-tolerant grasses and succulents and non-watered dune gardens. They love that I don't water my property anymore. They love it that we're committed to sustainability and that we recycle. They love it that when I tell them that by having breakfast here with us, they're in the circle of supporting the young farmers that are trying to get their certification to have organic farms here. And that even though some of them aren't organic, I know they're not spraying. So they love to be in that circle and know about it. They love that we're mentoring local college students to be in the hospitality business. They love to talk to our college interns. We even talk political activism with them. They love our diversity platform, that we welcome all, that we're open about who we are and how we are, because this is ours, and we don't care if we alienate someone who doesn't agree with our lifestyle or how we feel politically. Millennials can see through that, and they're forward-thinking generation. They're risk takers. You can appeal to their values by being yourself. They think you're actually kind of interesting because they're experiential themselves, and they like the spirit of entrepreneurship, and they like to be a part and to collaborate or corroborate or whatever word you would use, to be interactive and to be part of the family. These young people become part of my family, Manor family, we call them. Yelton Manor family. If they're here on their baby moon, their baby becomes part of the Manor family. They send us a picture of that baby when it's born. They're part of us. They become the adorableness of the day on the Manor Facebook page that day, or on our Twitter page that day, or on our Instagram page that day. So we include them. And then you take that, they become part of a truly interactive experience that matters. And then we ask them for their support. We ask them to be part of it by asking them to link their friends to that picture of them on our Facebook page, or to that Twitter page, or to that Instagram page, which is show your friends that you're there today. Show them that you're the adorableness of the day. Then it goes viral. And then we've got that many more of their friends watching what we're doing. Send us your sunset pictures from tonight, and we'll put that up and link that out and link your friends to that. So make them part of what you're doing, which is what they love, without ever faking it. Like I said, never BS them. Don't ever fake it. Just make it a real, authentic. I always say it's like your best family reunion without your stupid cousins here. It's just a really easygoing family reunion style, and it's fun. And then ask them to invite their friends to come and have the same thing. And if you do that day after day after day, they do the work. They'll write the great reviews. I have 860 reviews. I'm the only 5-star lodging in my whole resort because I ask them for it. Just like sale. You can do all the work, but if you don't ask for the business, you won't get it. So when they leave, they tell me they had a great time. I say, will you please tell all your nice friends? And will you leave us a great review? Yeah, we'll do that. And then they do. And that, I mean, you can get online and you can read 30 articles on how to market to millennials and get all this information, but it's really quite simple that. Include them in an authentic experience for your real ministry and what you do, and put your heart in it, have a great time, and then ask them to support you and be part of making your business successful. And they will, and everybody will have a great time. Does that sound too simple?
Most good things are simple, aren't they?
That's how simple it seems to me. I wish I could make it more complicated for you, but that's how simple it seems to me.
It's great, and you've got the proof to show that this has been successful for you. So,
well, I could make more money. It just depends on how you're rating success. Okay, I mean, I could make more money if I opened up my doors and said, I'm going to target carbon-based units, with a credit card. I could make more money. It just depends on how you're ranking success. I've had years where I've made more money, but I haven't been as happy. So it just depends on, so, you got to be careful with that. How I define it isn't like everybody's going to define it. And I have this luxury, okay? I've been here 30 years, so I may not have to make as much money to keep my utilities going and my taxes paid and all the things that somebody else, I don't mean to disparage somebody who has to open up to every carbon-based unit and every wedding and everything that comes their way, every group, and take everything that comes their way. But if you do have the luxury of tilting the table and funneling in exactly what you want, I would definitely say that healthy, active, happy millennials are definitely quiet couples. It's a perfectly nice way to make a living.
That's great.
Should everybody do it? Should every innkeeper do it? I don't think so. In fact, I know so. I come from sales and marketing, so targeting a certain customer, it's art and it's science, and every innkeeper has a marketplace, and they have to evaluate what their target market, what their niche market is going to be. Are they going to be family and pet friendly? Are they urban? Are they have a college there? Are they going to get business customers? Are they in a forest? Are they at a farm? Are there skiers and snowmobilers? Are they a resort town? Everything has to do with your location and then what you're going to do for your decor, how your food is going to be, your policies are going to depend on that, your pricing, everything's going to be based on that customer who's going to desire the product that you create. And then how you market it to them has to be in the language that they quite specifically speak. And then it has to be delivered in the system that gets that information specifically to them. So, and I personally think that every innkeeper should attract the kind of person that they have a good time with, that they enjoy serving. That's who they should serve, so that they have a great time and they're happy and they're never grumpy. That's the way it should be, so that they can continue to do it decade after decade and still put their feet on the ground every morning and say, oh my God, I love what I do. And sometimes I get tired, but I never get tired of it. So I don't think it's for everyone, but I think everyone should know what kind of customer they want to serve and target for that. That I do believe.
Excellent insights there. Steve, any other questions for Elaine on this one? I know we've covered off on a lot.
I guess one other side topic or related topic. I know you've mentioned, trust. I mean, trust is something that is important for any innkeeper, and I think it's aside from the desire for actual experiences, and true non-plastic experiences that you don't always get, may never get with kind of a hotel sort of approach. Trust seems to be, obviously, the trust that a guest has with an innkeeper is stronger, certainly should be stronger because it's a more personal approach, period. Yeah. So I think that's true no matter who the guest is, but talk about the importance of trust when it comes to millennials, with the innkeeper especially, or even more generally, whether trust is a bigger factor for that group or not.
Well, I think trust is always a factor, and I think every guest is going to be different. I think part of the art form of what we do is that each and every person is assessed immediately for how much interaction they will or will not want with us. They come in and, we can tell pretty much in a nanosecond if they just want to be 100% left alone completely. And then there's a very broad spectrum to people who just, want to be joined at the hip with us and be part of the whole experience all the way down the line, literal innkeeper stalkers and everything in between. But in terms of millennials, generally, there's a feeling that they come with their beautiful story. They're celebrating something generally. It's a baby moon or an anniversary, or for me, because I'm a luxury inn, I get big events. I get a proposal or a honeymoon, these big events. And then on the side of that, I get that we're just exhausted. It's the first time away from our 3 kids, and we just had to get away. And it's an amazing thing that we got away for a couple of days. And so they're really important events. And I think just being trusted with that. I tell my staff, my small staff all the time, don't think for a minute that just because this seems like a lot of money that these people are spending, don't you think that they didn't save and work hard to put all of their planets in a line to make this very important couple of days happen for them? And it is a huge trust factor that they've put it in our hands. And everything has to be excellent. It is a huge trust factor. And I think that has to come through. And again, I believe because they have been, I don't know why they have such keen BS radar, but they do. Maybe, I don't know if they've just been betrayed so many times that they have no tolerance for nonsense. I've heard them say to me any number of times that they've been to any number of places and the pictures have been distorted, or they've just been BS'd about some place that they went and it didn't live up to their expectations. That's why they read reviews so much. That's why they only believe the word of mouth from their own friends through their own Instagram. They'll only go to a place that primarily that a friend has recommended. That's why small, little, inexpensive Facebook ads can be so powerful, because they're targeted to come through Facebook only through Facebook people who have recommended or have come to your inn. It goes to their Facebook friends. So their friends have already been to your inn. That's their trust. That's their recommendation. They heard it from a friend. They just don't buy into advertising anymore. They don't believe it for 1 second. I mean, look at their whole world. Their whole world is full of lies. Everything is fake news to them, and rightfully so. So trust is a big factor. And I think when they come and they're put at ease immediately, I think there's a very warm feeling for them to know that, at least I'd like to believe, and I think it's true, that someone is here, whether they're ever going to use it or not. And it happens to be true. If something happens to them and they need a hospital, we're here. If they need anything, we're here. From the smallest things like a dinner reservation to the worst kind of emergency, someone is here who cares about them and who is going to be here and is going to be here for them. So that trust, somebody real, somebody who's been here a long time and whose only work is to care about them in that moment. So, yeah, trust factor. And they know that we care. We're the ones that answer the door when they come in, and we tell them, we want your stay to be perfect. They have my text number. It comes directly to I call it my Dick Tracy watch. It comes directly to my Apple Watch. And if they need anything, they can text me at a moment's notice. So we're tech savvy. They're connected to me. And I think there's a trust factor in that. That, and again, I know they love being just part of it. They love that this is an extraordinarily beautiful, successful, small business that we are very proud of, and that they can be a small part of it and take some pride in it themselves and be part of the Manor family and be valued here and be part of it personally and feel like they're part of making us more successful. We don't BS them if they tell us, oh, you must be doing really great here. Well, actually, we're not. Travel and leisure isn't what it used to be. Airbnb is kicking our ass. It isn't what it used to be. We sure could use your help. Make sure you tell all your nice friends about us. We laugh. We say, we have a no knucklehead rule, so don't tell your knucklehead friends about us, but tell your nice friends about us. And they laugh, but they know what we're talking about, and they do. They want to be part of making us successful. And I get pictures of their babies and Christmas cards and gifts in the mail and thank you cards. And they buy, oh, my mother would love this place. Well, it makes a really nice Christmas present. One size fits all. So there comes that Christmas, they buy their mother a gift certificate, and then they're part of it. So, yeah, trust. It's truly still the same old thing. It's no different than it ever was. So it's a real deal. It's still just what we were 30 years ago. We're just a loving place to go and stay that's safe and clean and loving with fabulous food and a great location. And it's a delightful product, and we just, with a brand new customer that gets it. And all we have to do is get the word out to them in the way that they get that word, and that's on social media. You have to know how to work it, and you have to know how it works, and you have to get it out that way. Otherwise, you'll never reach them, ever. So it has to go out that way.
Excellent.
Great. Steve?
Did I answer that question?
Yeah, perfectly.
Did I answer?
Absolutely.
Very much so. Any other questions, Steve, before we wrap this up?
I'm afraid that if I ask any more questions, Matt, that I'm going to be talked to separately from the podcast. So I could go on forever, and I know Elaine would certainly love to answer the questions. She would certainly be willing to. But no, I think she's covered a lot of ground. I think it's great information for innkeepers. But the bottom line is that I think what she says makes sense. I mean, life is too short to either, if you're a guest, not to have real experiences, but if you're an innkeeper, to make sure that you're happy with anything that you're doing. But, be happy with it, enjoy what you're doing. And if you're an innkeeper, make sure that includes who, if you have the luxury to target those people that you'd rather be around. So it's, millennials might not be for every innkeeper. I'm sure they aren't. But, I think that's great insight as far as, be what you want to be as long as the market allows for it. So hopefully the millennial insights that she's given us, or, for the innkeepers, other innkeepers, hopefully that's worthwhile. But don't be gimmicky. Make sure you want to do it.
Excellent. Elaine, any parting shots for us today?
Well, I just, I'm always happy to talk with you guys. I enjoy it very much. So thank you so much for giving me a chance to babble at you. And if there's anything else I can chat with you about, give me a holler.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's great. And you all just heard our second podcast in our series of interviews with Elaine Herbert, the owner and operator of Yelton Manor in South Haven, Michigan. And as we mentioned for the first interview, she shared her insights into the impact of Airbnb on the tourism landscape in her region. And today she was kind enough to share her insights into why millennials are an ideal target for their property. And we really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Frictionless Innkeeper podcast, brought to you by the Frictionless Guest App. If you wish to learn more, please visit frictionlessguest.com. Once again, that's frictionlessguest.com.